The complete works of Swami Vivekananda, address delivered by Swamiji in Ramanad in 1897, Part 2. In this land are still religion and spirituality, the fountains which will have to overflow and flood the world to bring in new life and new vitality to the Western and other nations, which are now almost borne down, half killed and degraded by the political ambitions and social scheming. From out of the many voices, consonant and dissonant, from out of the medley of sounds filling the Indian atmosphere, rises up supreme, striking and full one note, and that is renunciation. Give up. That is the watchword of the Indian religions. This world is a delusion of 2 days. The present life is of 5 minutes. Beyond is the infinite. Beyond this world of delusion, let us seek that. This continent is illuminated with brave and gigantic minds and intelligences which even think of this so-called infinite universe as only a mud puddle. Beyond and still beyond they go. Time, even infinite time, is to them but non-existence. Beyond and beyond time they go. Space is nothing to them. Beyond that they want to go. And this going beyond the phenomenal is the very soul of the religion. The characteristic of my nation is this transcendentalism, this struggle to go beyond, this daring to tear the veil off the face of nature and have at any risk, at any price, a glimpse of the beyond. That is our ideal. But of course, all the people in the country cannot give up entirely. Do you want to enthuse them? Then here is the way to do so. Your talks of politics, of social regeneration, your talks of money making and commercialism, all these will roll off like water from a duck's back. This spirituality then is what you have to teach the world. Have we to learn anything else? Have we to learn anything from the world? We have perhaps to gain a little in material knowledge, in the power of organization, in the ability to handle powers, organizing powers, in bringing the best results out of the smallest of causes. This perhaps to a certain extent we may learn from the West. But if anyone preaches in India the ideal of eating and drinking and making merry, if anyone wants to apotheosize in the material world into a god, that man is a liar. He has no place in this holy land. The Indian mind does not want to listen to him. In spite of the sparkle and the glitter of Western civilization, in spite of all this polish and this marvelous manifestation of power standing upon this platform, I tell them to their face that it is all in vain. It is the vanity of vanities. God alone lives. The soul alone lives. Spirituality alone lives. Hold on to that. Yet perhaps some sort of materialism toned down to our own requirements would be a blessing to many of our brothers who are not yet ripe for the highest truths. This is the mistake made by every country and in every society, and it is a greatly regrettable thing that in India, where it was always understood, the same mistake of forcing the highest truths on people who are not yet ready for them has been made of late. My method need not be yours. The sannyasi, as you know, is the ideal of the Hindu life. and everyone by our Shastras is compelled to give up. Every Hindu who has tasted the fruits of this world must give up in the latter part of his life. And he who does not is not a Hindu and has no more the right to call himself a Hindu. We know that this is the ideal, to give up after seeing and experiencing the vanity of things. Having found out that the heart of the material world is a mere hollow, containing only ashes, giving it up and going back, the mind circling forward as it were toward the senses, and that mind has to circle backwards. The pravritti has to stop and the nivritti has to begin. That is the ideal. But that ideal can only be realized after a certain amount of experience. We cannot teach the child the truth of renunciation. The child is born optimist. His whole life is in his senses. His whole life is one mass of sense enjoyment. So there are childlike men in every society who require a certain amount of experience of enjoyment to see through the vanity of it, and then renunciation will come. There has been ample provision made for them in our books, but unfortunately in later times there has been a tendency to bind everyone down by the same laws as those by which the sannyasi is bound, and that is a great mistake. But for that, a good deal of the poverty and the misery that you see in India need not have been. A poor man's life is hemmed in and bound down by tremendous spiritual and ethical laws for which he has no use. Hands off. Let the poor fellow enjoy himself a little, and then he will raise himself up, and renunciation will come to him of itself. Perhaps in this line we can be taught something by the Western people. But we must be very cautious in learning these things. I'm sorry to say that most of the examples one meets nowadays of men who have imbibed the Western ideas are more or less failures.